Today I have Rebecca here, and we're doing part 2 of our series of Q&A about shoes. And our first Q&A about shoes with Rebecca was really well received. We got a lot of really good comments about it, so I wanted to ask her some more questions. For those of you who don't know, Rebecca is our shoe sourcing and selling expert. She does a really great job with that, and so I just thought bringing her on here to ask her a few questions could help you out. If you're looking to be interested in selling shoes, if you're already selling shoes right now, how you can go about improving, making better choices when it comes to selling shoes on Amazon. So, Rebecca, when we first started sending in shoes, learning about shoes, we decided to do an experiment. Can you tell me about our initial experiment with shoes and how that worked out? So.
Yeah, it's funny because as you're saying that I'm the expert in selling shoes, that would be the expert between the two of us, not like an expert out of all people who sell shoes on Amazon.
She's an expert.
Whatever. So, yeah, so when we first got started, we had been, I think it was about 15 months ago now, that we were ungated in shoes and didn't get started right away selling shoes, and kind of were thinking through like, okay, how are we going to do this? How are we going to get started? And so we finally decided, okay, we're just going to set aside a budget and we're going to spend 2 weeks, and I'm going to source as many shoes as I can with that amount of money in 2 weeks time and send it in and see how it goes. And then once those shoes are in and start selling, we'll kind of go from there with more sourcing, and do we need to tweak our sourcing, and you know what to do from there. And so that's what we did, and I can't even remember exactly now how much we dedicated to that. I want to say it was like $2,000 or $3,000. It was not a small amount of money compared to, you know, other experiments we've done. It was a fairly big commitment. And so we did that, and I spent 2 weeks buying shoes, and we sent them in. I was so excited because you hear all this about, you know, really high selling prices, and it's going to be awesome, high ROI. And so we sent it in, we waited, and we kept waiting, and we kept waiting, and they weren't selling. I really thought that, you know, within like 4 to 6 weeks maybe we would have, you know, a lot of sales back from that batch of inventory that we sent in, and we didn't. We sold a few here and there, but not a lot. And then we kept waiting and kept waiting, and we still weren't selling them. And so I was really discouraged and started asking a lot of questions. And, you know, I would ask Steven questions about what did I do wrong, and he would ask other people that, you know, we network with online, and he would ask people who are known to be shoe experts, and we just read everything we could in Facebook groups, and we're like, okay, I can see now what I did wrong, and I can see that I can't just give up, because I honestly, after about maybe 6 weeks or so after that experiment, I was like, maybe we just don't need to do shoes. Maybe that's not our thing, you know, maybe we need to do something different. But we decided to give it another go, and I'm so glad we did, because we learned so much after that first 2 weeks. And then after, you know, the next 3 to 4 months as well, we kept learning more and finding the lessons in that failed experiment that really, it's only failed if you look at the dollar amounts in that first 2 or 3 months, but over the last year, that experiment has paid off big time.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's one of those things where it's like we should know by now that certain things, adding new aspects to your business and trying new that it takes time, and it takes learning, and it takes failing at certain aspects to learn, and we're really thankful we didn't give up, and that we just kept pressing on. So what would you say is probably the biggest factor in why it was a slow start and we got so frustrated with trying to start selling shoes?
Well, there were several factors, and we'll talk about more of those, I'm sure, like that'll come up throughout this video. But then also, you know, there's a blog post where you can see more details, and that's at fulltimefba.com/shoe series. We have a series of blog posts that goes into more detail. But I would say probably the biggest thing that I wish I had really understood before we got started was that shoes are a long tail item. I don't know why, and probably if I'd read more and was paying attention more beforehand, I would have known that. But I went into it with this mindset because a lot of our inventory at that time was fast turn. And so I was like, okay, yeah, let's add shoes and get some high selling stuff going too, as well as all of our, lower priced toys and books and stuff. But that was not the case. And so when those sales did not start coming in right away, I was just shocked and like, oh my goodness, are we just going to have these shoes sitting there forever? And sometimes, yeah, they do take a long time. And I wish that I had known that, I had understood that ahead of time. And also, I think the other thing that it's like a mindset shift that I wasn't quite ready for. Along with them being long tail, shoes also require more money up front to buy them. And so when you combine the two of those, when you've got a long tail item with a higher upfront buy cost, you've got a higher risk involved. And I needed to just have a mindset shift that like, okay, I need to just be satisfied with them taking longer, and I need to not use capital that we do need to turn over fast for that. We need to have fast turning capital and some of these long tail items that will get us a high ROI still and high or high selling price, but it might take a little bit longer.
Yeah, and so you mentioned we were selling books and toys and other items, and then we added shoes, and it was like totally different. So what do you think's the biggest difference between selling items like books and toys, between that and selling shoes on Amazon?
The biggest difference for me in knowing what to buy would be the difference in sales rank and the lack of history, sales rank and price history. Sales rank history really, because you can find price history, but sales rank in shoes works so differently. And I sort of knew that, but until I had the experience of actually buying shoes at what I thought was a low rank, I had read, what is a low rank in shoes. And again, that's something, everybody has a different opinion and a different model that they follow. But I had a parameter that I was buying in, but then I didn't know how to tell, I didn't know what to expect, like how fast does a fast selling shoe sell for? If you can't look at camel, which shoes, because of the sales rank, because there's so many variations of shoes, camel, which tracks sales rank history, cannot track sales rank history for the variations, because the sales rank of a shoe is telling you the sales rank of all variations of that shoe. And so when I'm looking at this style and brand of shoe in size 10 and it's purple, well, I don't know if that sales rank is going to really apply to that shoe or if it's applying to the size 8 black more than that. And so really the sales rank and the lack of sales rank history on camel are what were another big shift for me that I had to kind of get comfortable with, not being able to know as much from that as I can tell in books and toys and kitchen and other categories.
Yeah, so since there is such a big difference in using that information to make a smart sourcing decision, with sales ranks and variations, and the camel information is not there for shoes, how do you compensate for the that difference when you're sourcing shoes, when you're pricing shoes, when you're dealing with shoes?
Right. So one of the things that I really like to do, and again, everybody has a different business model. So what I'm saying right now is what I decided I wanted to do to kind of mitigate that risk of not knowing the sales rank history. My preference is to source shoes that have a lower number of variations, so that the sales rank of that entire parent ASIN of the shoe, which is what the sales rank you're seeing on the Amazon page is more likely to apply to whatever variation I'm picking. So I like to buy shoes that only have a very small number of color variations, and I also prefer to buy shoes that don't have, for every single size and half size, also a narrow and a wide version of it, because if you only have, a smaller number of options as far as the sizes go, that too makes fewer number of overall variations, and you can you can assume a lot more things about the overall shoe sales rank. And another thing that I personally have done is chosen to go wide instead of going deep on shoes. And so instead of buying 5 shoes in size 8, I would buy, size 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, one of each, so that I've kind of got my risk spread out across several ASINs and can, do that on several pairs of shoes instead of having all of my money tied up in one size, one color of one shoe.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. And I mean, and this all came from trial and error and trying things out and testing and being patient and making some bad choices and making some good choices and trying to break down why was my bad choice a bad choice, why was my good choice a good choice. And, we've been able to really grow our shoe sales. In fact, last month, I believe shoes were probably about half of our items sold on Amazon were shoes. And
half of our revenue, not half of the items sold.
Okay, half of our revenue. That's a big difference, So yeah, half of our revenue was because of shoe sales last month. And we're continuing to learn new things, and we're continuing to figure out stuff. And as we learn more, we'll come back and teach you more. We've got so much more to say about selling shoes. In fact, if you go to fulltimefba.com/shoe series, we have a series of blog posts that will, add from time to time to be able to help you make your best sourcing decisions, pricing decisions, dealing with other aspects, prepping, returns, all sorts of stuff when it comes to shoes. So with all of the changes, the variations, and starting out shoes, how did you become more comfortable selling shoes? And I think another way to say that is, how did you become confident in the choices that you're making?
It really was just over time and trial and error. Like you were just saying, we asked a ton of questions too, and we joined some Facebook groups. There are several really good Facebook groups. Well, 2 that I know of in particular. One is the Your Sourced Inventory Facebook group. I really love that one. And it's an excellent group that also has hashtags that they put on their posts so that you can easily just go on the group and click, enter in hashtag education into their search bar, and you can pull up just this whole list of previous posts that the group owners have put out that go through, case studies of, would you buy this shoe, and how many would you buy, and why would you buy it, or why would you not buy it, and just reading stuff like that, and really over time just experimenting and finding what I feel most comfortable with, because I, even beyond that first initial experiment, I kept kind of refining what my buying criteria was over the next few months, and just kind of seeing how did that work out if I changed, certain aspects of what I was looking for in shoes. And if it worked good, then I kind of made a note that, okay, I'll keep doing that, and if it didn't work, okay, let's try something different. And it takes time, and it does take money too, that, thankfully we were at a point in our business where we had enough money that we could dedicate part of it to learning shoes and continuing to put money into that slow-moving process while we still had fast-turning inventory that we were continually sending in as well.
Yeah, and that's a good way to think about it. You might be thinking that at the beginning process when you're buying shoes to add to your inventory and you're not sure if it's good or not, and you're going through the learning process, the money that you're paying to source these shoes to see if they sell, that's money that you can think of that as education.
Right.
That's money that you're putting into education. Don't just think of it, oh, I blew $40 because I bought this shoe that didn't sell at $100 like I thought it would. No, that's $40 that you put into education so that you've learned the ways that you've made mistakes and the successes that you've had. And so that's something to think about. A couple questions I've seen on the screen come up have been about returns. One of them said, do you get a lot of shoe returns? And then another one asked, do you see that women's shoes are returned more than men's shoes? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, on the question about just returns in general, we do get a higher rate of return on shoes than we do in other categories, but what we've also noticed is that a lot of time when those shoes are returned to FBA, the FBA workers inspect them and just put them right back into our inventory because the person tried them on, put them back in the box, and sent them back. And so we don't even have to deal with that. And then they do sell and somebody doesn't return them. So it's like, yes, there was returns, but then they're selling. So the sell-through rate is still, you know, comparable. Really, it ends up over time, it's comparable to other categories. There are shoes that are returned and, you know, the warehouse deems them not sellable, and so we have them sent back here. Sometimes we get them and we're like, why did they send this back to us? This looks exactly like when we sent it in, and so we just send it back. Or if it's obviously been worn or has some, or the box is damaged or something, we will sell it on eBay where you can, you know, sell used shoes, and you can also have a more detailed description where you say, you know, oh, there's a scuff on the right toe or something like that. And as far as women's shoes more than men, I personally haven't kept track of that, but I, you know, anecdotally, I hear people talking about that, and I see people saying that, like, oh, don't sell the tall riding boots for women because those are hard, you know, without trying them on, it's hard to know if those are going to fit. And so also, you know, really high stiletto heels. And I've also heard that shoes that could possibly be used in a wedding or a prom or something like that, that you have to watch out on those, that maybe somebody gets wedding shoes that they wear for one event and then send back. You know, I don't know. I haven't kept track of that. So I don't sell riding boots because I agree that I can't personally imagine buying a pair of shoes like that online and not possibly returning them if they didn't fit. So, and we have had people buy a 7.5 and an 8 of the exact same shoe, and so you're like, okay, I know one of those is coming back.
Right.
Which is part of the process.
Right. Well, and yeah, we've learned a lot, and we're going to continue to write up blog posts, do more videos to help you. Again, if you want to find more information about that, you can go to fulltimefba.com/shoe series.
Such a tongue twister.
It is, and I almost cussed one time when I tried to say it. But you know, it's something that we have loved. It's turned out to be really good for us, and we think it could be a quality aspect of your Amazon business to add. And we just want you to get off to the right start. And if you have already started, we want to help you take it to the next level. So that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you scroll down, you could leave a comment, like this video, leave us a question. You can also find all the links that we talked about in this video. You can find that in the description below. And be sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. We got so many more videos coming up. We don't want you to miss out on anything. And as always, the best place to find all the information of turning part-time hours into a full-time income is the website fulltimefba.com. I'll see you there.